ultimate question about
during over the course of the 7 years in which the book was put together.
Welcome to the Scholars Chair. Tonight, a conversation with a new minister at Goodloe Memorial Unitarian Universalist Congregation, Reverend Pratima Dharm. At Focus, a modern reflection on the relevance of the Hindu goddess called Durga, right here in the Scholars Chair.
Let the conditions of inequality that we suffered under, when we are the oppressor, the dominant class, let's not impose that injustice on the others.
Anybody think that you could have a just system without giving women their rights?
Everyone has an opinion, and we sit around the marketplace and talk about opinion, but what is truth?
With the shareholder, their goal is similar to the business, to maximize profit.
That belief becomes a context for a development of knowledge.
Say physics is the DNA of technology because the rules for how you build new technology starts in physics.
Because Quran challenges the people. It's not only the people of the book, it challenges Muslims.
We say secular, they hear godless.
Right.
What was intended?
Watch the Scholars Chair every Monday night. And here is your host. Welcome to the Scholars Chair, Pratima.
Thank you.
I'm glad you could be with us. You know, I had the good fortune to attend Goodloe Unitarian Universalist Congregation, and it was an interfaith gathering there. There was presenters from people from the Jewish, the Christian, and the Islamic communities making presentations, and you gave a lecture there. For this Scholars Chair, what we've done is actually taken your lecture as a backdrop for the text for this interview. Tell me, the title of this talk that you gave was called A Reflection on the Relevance of Durga, the Hindu goddess, and her relevance today. Can you tell us about what are the universal values in studying her?
Absolutely. So the universal value of love and compassion and mercy is very central to the feminine energy of Durga. So Durga is actually a mythological figure in the Hindu or the Sanatan.
What is that word, mythological? What is that word?
Mythological is stories that have been interwoven with moral messages within the Sanatan tradition, out of which the Hindu tradition comes out. And so Durga is basically the feminine energy of the sacred and the holy, and is an example within the society or the culture that I grew up in as a symbol of how a woman can be. The possibility of my own power and my own Durga was present in the image that was external and cultural and religious, and it was present out there. And the three major aspects were karuna, which is mercy, love, and compassion. And compassion. Yes.
I think that's a wonderful idea. So the tradition itself is quite rich. I know that as your paper went on, you were talking about this particular festival, the Hindu festival, to celebrate good's triumph over evil. I think there's a word for it, Dasura, is that correct?
So basically, within the Hindu or Sanatan Dharma, we have various festivals throughout the year, which is based on a lunar calendar instead of a solar calendar, which is very Western. You know, the Gregorian calendar has set dates every year. This 25th of December is Christmas, whereas in the lunar calendar, which Jewish traditions follow, Islamic traditions follow, Buddhists and Jain and Sikh, most Eastern religions follow a lunar calendar. And so based on that, we have festivals that are throughout the year, and also there's a cluster of festivals during a certain period of time where the harvest has taken place. You know, people have time now to rejoice and dance and drink and be merry, but it's also time to not just be glad, but to also reflect. And so these festivals are interwoven for people to have the time to do the spiritual fasting and also take the time to reflect what it means to not just be a laborer on a farm, but to have a deeper meaning and a deeper understanding of life. Yes. And how do we live in community by loving each other, by having compassion, and by sharing mercy. So it's basically...
So the celebration, now you looked at this particular festival and you were noticing that people were celebrating, but you had a very interesting observation that was probably not synonymous with the experience, but that's an undergird of the experience between the rich, the artisans, and the priests. Can you explain that observation for our audience?
Sure. So during this cluster of time where all these festivals are almost closely come close to each other in time. First is the Dasara, and before the Dasara is the Navaratri, and after that comes the Festival of Lights, and other festivals follow. And during that time, there is a lot of emphasis on what are we going to offer to God, and how are we going to come together in all pomp and show and grandeur, and celebrate and make a show of it. So as a child growing up in India, I often saw what a great show it was, and so many things in the background. It was not about God, but it was about the differences between the rich and the poor. And the poor also wanted to belong and also wanted to bring something to God. And the intention was to be accepted. But the question that I noticed was that were they accepted? And I think that has always remained open. And I noticed that the behavior of the priest was different towards the rich people who were allowed to break the line. And the poor would be waiting, their clothes were torn, but they would show up in the best clothes and they would show up with the best offerings. But the offering was not seen as acceptable because it was the priest that was deciding. It was not God. So,
or not of God, or it wasn't worthy to be accepted by God.
At least in my eyes, I saw a man, a person, deciding if it was worthy for the idols. So it was really a human decision rather than our ability to see sincerely and honestly that there is no difference between a bread that is bought, say somewhere which is not a very expensive store, but a bread that is brought in some really expensive Chevy Chase, a McLean neighborhood, as if that bread becomes more acceptable to God. And the priest decides, okay. So that is what I noticed, and I continue to notice that even today throughout our celebration. So it's really not about celebrating light or arriving at a light or arriving at the truth, but it's really celebrating our crassness, that we have not been able to get over ourselves and our inability to see, actually. Yes. So we judge people, and we make people feel small, and we feel that we have done our job. Yes. And that's not how I understood then and how I understand today.
You are coming from a culture or society of a Hindu thought, a Hindu religion, but you make this migration to the Unitarian Universalist community. How do you do that?
Well, there are a lot of similarities within. Number one, I am very, very drawn to the teachings of Jesus. I'm very drawn to the teachings of Muhammad, and especially the Sufi tradition in Islam, which is Rumi's writings and Hafiz. And I grew up around that because my parents, they raised us around Christians and Jews and Muslims and Sikhs and Jains. So I grew up in a very diverse society, even though India seems for an outsider a very homogeneous society. It is not. It's a very diverse society, and over thousands of years, what is happening in the United States has happened in other cultures over time, where people from different cultures have come in, and then over time, over thousands of years, have become or come to be a certain people. And so in the United States, which is a very young country, and it is not, you know, people have lived in this country, but, you know, they have been taken out, and then another set of people are coming, and then another set of people, and there's just a lot of struggle to who am I and what am I, and you know, all of that. Struggle to find their voices, right? And a lot of voices get lost, some are heard. So it's a new country, and it's going through something that is very normal that other countries that are older have gone through. And that's how you come to be, and it'll be interesting.
It is interesting. It's also a very interesting idea of Durga, the goddess that actually defeats the demon, evil. Does that relationship inform you today? And
absolutely, absolutely. I think I am saddened by the way. You know, what brought me to this country, you know, I was so drawn to immigrating to this country because it was that sense or the perception of freedom. Yeah. And it was not just perception for me, it was my reality. I wanted to be free, and I wanted to live in a country which gave women freedom. And I come here and I'm saddened that women are running after so many idols that really take away from their own light. And where in a society women are not strong, the children are not going to be strong. And it will continue down the road, and you see that. Women have gone on to concentrate on how beautiful they want to look, or how the concept that I'm not enough, just the way the Maker made me, is such an idol and such a false thing to run after. And I see, sadly, that we talk about women's lib and this, it's just an idea. But it is a reality. I'm not interested in women's lib. I'm not. I'm not sitting here to tell. I'm talking about my liberation, and I am a liberated person, and I'm interested in your liberation, and I'm interested in my child's liberation. I'm interested in every person's liberation. And that's a larger concept.
Yes.
And so the concept of Durga is that when you come into your power and you say, this is wrong and I'm going to stop it, you do not remain male or female. You become Durga, and Durga is the coming into your own power. That is what is Durga. That's how I understood it. So when I get my hair down and I'm all wild and angry because I got an issue right in front of me, everybody's looking at me like my hair's down and I'm angry and my eyes are big and, you know, all of that. But what's happening is I have changed in me, and I have come into my own. And when I come into my own, I'm able to speak to truth, and I'm able to speak the truth, and I'm able to bring truth forth into this world, because that's my role. And I'm able to empower the men in my life, and I'm able to empower the children in my life and the old. And I'm also able to take care of others. There's no shame in that, oh, I gave somebody a cup of tea, or I washed somebody's clothes, or there is a lot of shaming in being totally me. And Durga has so many aspects to her. She is feminine, and she's angry, and she's loving, and she's graceful, and she's all these things, and she has to be all these things to overcome the evil.
Is this the reason for the many arms?
The many arms. So it's a mythological, that's why I use the word mythological figure.
Yes,
and people take it literally, like there is a Durga like that.
Right.
Every woman has the capacity. Even men have that feminine energy in them. It has to be awakened. And awakening only happens when we are not so distracted by all this glitz and glamour around us. So there's just so much distraction, and we get distracted. It's our mind that starts to play with us, and that's why within the Sanatan tradition we have the emphasis on steadying your mind, meditation, and all of that. And people think, oh, okay, that's another tool. So everything becomes an idol. It doesn't take us to the truth. We get totally entangled in the practice of it, and we get obsessed that we got to master it. But it's just a tool to get us to that place of truth and power that is within me, within you.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is Durga. That is Durga.
I like the image that's created. You also have written, actually, in your speech that people choose to follow a religion that thrives on principles of fear and bargaining of blessings rather than freedom and love. Yeah. Explain.
Well, this is what I believe, that after having grown up in India under the Sanatan tradition and having observed so many different religions, being in the Christian tradition and then studying Sufism and so many different world religions and Judaism as well, there is that human element that wants to instill fear in people. And fear never liberates us and never allows us to embrace the enormity and the beauty of the holy and the sacred, which is present all around us. It doesn't come in one shape or form. It could come in the bread that you eat right now. You know, you really get hungry and you have a piece of bread, and you are an awake person and you are in touch with your inner light. You will find the sacred and holy in that entire experience. You will find, because it's connected to the wheat that grew on the ground. It's connected to the ground upon which it grew. It's connected to the water and the rain and the clouds and the hands that tilled and the hands that made the bread. So we are connected to each other, but the fact is that we are always, always distracted. We always get distracted, and that's
freedom and love. A recipe for evolving from the distracted life.
Yes, I think it's fear also keeps us away from others. Because we have so much perception about, if you say that you are a Muslim, I have, a regular person who has not studied Islam or who has never loved a Muslim will have so much perception about, oh, what a Muslim is, or what a Hindu is, or what a Buddhist is, or what a Christian is. And all these fears and this practice or the conditioning of being bargainers, we go and haggle over a price of something that we want. We may not need it. We do that with religion too. We think we can make a God listen to us. We can make him buy a car for us. We can make God get us a woman that we want, or get us a man we want, or get us a child that we want, or anything. And that is not the religion or the message of truth. The truth is that sometimes, a lot of times, you're called to do the things we don't like, situations and people we don't like. The truth is we got to stay in it. Without staying in it, we can never get to that point or place.
Never grow.
To know myself, how much I can love a person I never liked before. But we got to stay. And so the truth of the matter is, it's easy to have fears. It is easy to have that bargaining conditioning. It's easy to have all these perceptions about others because we really are scared to go close to people. And without going close to people, we are not going to ever be close to Allah or God or Jehovah or Yahweh, because God is in people.
I love it. I love it. I love what you're saying here, and this is the reason for the Scholars Chair, to show different philosophical and theological points of view. And I think this is a wonderful contribution. You have written that the demon of war has forced the immigrants of the poor, the migration of the poor masses. I think that is what we are seeing throughout the globe now, that people are trying to escape war and war conditions for a better life. And yes, they do show up on the doorsteps of people who have a few more pennies, and they are considered poor at that state. Tell me about this idea. Why is it you think that people need to be concerned about this migration? Because it's obvious that some people are not concerned about these huge migration of humanity, it seems.
I think I can speak from the times that I live in, and I have seen some wars in my life. I have been in a war. I was in the U.S. Army, and I was deployed to Iraq. I have seen the horrors of war. I have seen war right in my neighborhood. I have seen war in the neighborhoods of America. There are some neighborhoods you walk in and it's a war, But the sad part is that we want to polish everything. We want to landscape our gardens. And we want to take out every weed and take it out, And we do that very well. We don't like anything getting tarnished with that image. So we live in a very delusional world,
yes.
Especially the rich. They like to isolate themselves. And the thing is, they don't understand that they are also going to die. Death comes to everybody. And so this utopian concept that my world is perfect because my garden is fine, I got the best furniture, I got the best neighborhood, and my kids are going to this school, but your kids are also going to get up, and they will never learn to feel either for you or for anybody. So it is a greater issue, and it's a very practical issue when we deny that there is poverty, when we deny that there is war, when we deny that there are issues in this world. We prevent ourselves from being totally human.
Yes, yes.
I don't want to feel about this person because they are poor, they got nothing to do with me. But we forget that our ancestors were poor. Our ancestors were immigrants. Our ancestors had disease, and we have disease too. God help us. So this is a very false view, and we pride ourselves in being a very truthful society, but we are not. And we create this falsehood that this is, but every bubble bursts. And people have to realize you are going to die too.
Yes,
Death happens to everybody. So it is our moral obligation that even when we can't feel, when we have too much, we can actually stop feeling. And it's a moral obligation to search for truth and meaning beyond the scope of the life that we have been given.
Beyond your
So if you
experience,
can't, my mother used to say that, even a dog takes care of its own. So what's different about you? You're taking care of your stuff and your kids, but you're not bothered about someone else's child.
yes.
They're not children. They don't have blood. They don't have, they don't feel. But it's easy. But it's just such a hopeless condition that you think that you are better and you don't have to go there. But you create a monster society that cannot feel for others.
So what do you think is the resolution?
The resolution is that we have to stop thinking that there is such a clear divide between the rich and poor. There is not. I mean, of course, physically, yes, they don't have furniture, they don't have the right zip codes, and they don't have enough food, and they don't have enough clothing. And come winter, they're not warm enough. All of those realities are present, but they're not different from us.
This is a great truth, and I think all the religious traditions state those things, but we tend to forget. You have written very eloquently that the heart of God is with the disenfranchised and the disadvantaged. So make a conscious choice to be with the poor, not as a rich person, but with humility for those who have barely enough. This is what you've been saying all evening. Make a conscious decision to see as it says in the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
And you've said it very, very succinctly. But explain to me, what are the experiences in your religious walk that gets you to be aware of this?
I was raised by parents who were, they came from a certain place of privilege, and then they gave that up. Because my grandfather was a Gandhian. He fought in the freedom struggle against the British. And he owned a lot of land. My grandmother came from, they say, I don't know, from a lot of privilege and wealth. And he was such a principled man that he gave up all of that because Gandhi called to give up your wealth and then join his movement. And it was a very radical concept. And so many did not give up their wealth. But my grandfather was one of them, and my father was 10 at the time that he gave up his rights to almost 17 villages. And villages in India is a lot of wealth. And he was the eldest, and he joined the freedom struggle. And somehow those values that were so important to my parents, that continued on, and that's what I was raised, and my siblings were raised in. And so that makes you different, and that makes you, I think it's necessary to suffer in life and not have money, and we were, because of my parents' decision, we were poor. And I also experienced the shame of being poor. I experienced not having things. And yet the emphasis on being a person of value through poverty was such a conflict, because when I looked around poor people, they don't seem to have the same values. And why are my parents teaching me to have the values and not sell your body for food, or not sell, for this and that? You still need to have principles, and you need to be able to go hungry. And I'm going like, these people are crazy, but they were crazy in the right way, and then they made me crazy enough to continue to have those values, that you don't sell your body and you don't do this. But then it made me aware what it is to be hungry and why people sell their bodies, because they're hungry, and then they have to feed their children. I never had that. I was coming from a place where I was taught, oh, a prostitute is a wrong person, is to be shunned. And I think every religion has a place to embrace everybody. But we as humans, we have so much perception, and we'd rather judge than come to a place of love. Because love takes a lot of work. Judging is like quick, 30 seconds I judge somebody. But loving is a lifetime thing, and it's really painful. So,
but you grow as a human being, as you just said so eloquently.
Yes,
and this is also the idea of Martin Luther King, who concentrated and preached content of character over and above everything else. And yes, giving a great deal, playing a great deal of emphasis on the integral worth of the individual. I think you have said it very, very well, and I'm so glad that you had a chance to share these ideas with us, because sometimes we do get over it. I mean, we miss the values that we've been talking to.
Yeah.
You have said the last word for our evening, but I greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for
coming.
Thank you, Khalil.
We have been having a wonderful talk with Unitarian Universalist Reverend Pratima Dharm about the Hindu goddess Durga. If you want to see more programs of the Scholars Chair, go to readonecommunications.com. I am Khalil Shadid. Good night.
Thank you.
Hit it! Hit it! Hit it! Hit it! amazing.